we oftentimes compare the kitchen of our life with the front room of somebody else's life. We go on Instagram and we look at how everybody seems to be successful and living their best life now, and assume that there's no issues, no challenges, if we could only be, as it were, like them. Episode 1. So exciting. This podcast has been in the making for some time, and I'm glad that we are finally here. Today we are going to be launching with progressing in spite of your struggles. What's beneath the surface? And we'll continue the discussion in the second episode. This whole concept of progressing in spite of your struggles really hit me years ago. I heard a very famous speaker and author, Rick Warren, say he feels both blessed and burdened. That hit me. Why? Because up until then, I only ever saw Rick Warren as a success. He was a best-selling author of Purpose-Driven Life, the fastest and best-selling book, non-fiction book of all time, only second to the Bible. And here, he was highlighting the parallel process of being burdened as well. Do you feel that way? Because I know it certainly resonated with me. In his case, one of his sons had some challenges, medical challenges, that of course will break any father's heart. And so when it comes to succeeding in life, this parallel process of being blessed and burdened at the same time determines the quality of our life, it determines the quality of our relationships, and quite frankly, how much success we actually enjoy in life. And so today we're going to be talking about two types of struggles. You have the private struggles and you have the public struggles. Private struggles are simply that. Struggles you're going through and nobody is actually privy to, except you tell them. This could be a marriage problem, for example. I know you see the couples outside smiling at each other, kissing, dirtying over each other, but privately, they are dealing with some challenges. I'm married, I know, my experience and experience of many couples around the world. And then it could also be things like addiction, anger, emotional problems. The list is endless. And then you have the public struggles. And these public struggles are struggles that are in view of everybody to see. It could be a public failure that everybody knows this person failed or messed that up. It could be a challenge that people know if you had a choice, you would have changed the situation by now. For example, me and my wife, or me dealing with infertility. That's an example of a public challenge because it took us years before we were able to have a child. And today, I'm going to zone into private struggles, and in the next episode, we'll then continue with the public struggles. Now, these private struggles affect how you relate with people, how you approach life, though nobody knows you're actually going through these challenges. I want to introduce to you a concept that I call the kitchen and the front room. One day, it hit me. I went to a Michelin star restaurant. I love food. And as I walked in, everything was absolutely pristine in the restaurant. I started my meal, and at some point, I decided, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. As I was going through, I caught a glimpse of the kitchen. Complete chaos. Nothing like the pristine front room me and other guests were enjoying. And so I didn't take any note of that. I just sort of carried on. It wasn't until the next day when I was feeling down, overwhelmed, and quite frankly, I was comparing my life with other people around me. And the truth is, I wasn't doing particularly great. And then I realized something. The image of this Michelin star restaurant, the front room, and the image of the kitchen flashed in my mind. And I saw that I was doing something that presumably most other people do, as I've come to realize. We oftentimes compare the kitchen of our life with the front room of somebody else's life. We go on Instagram and we look at how everybody seems to be successful and living their best life now, and assume that there's no issues, no challenges, if we could only be, as it were, like them. Now, this whole kitchen and front room analogy, we're going to play with it a little bit, because it's going to help you and liberate you from some of the struggles that you are having. It is what makes the private struggles even worse. So let me tell you a story. Last week, I had a 6 a.m. meeting. Don't ask me why we were meeting that early. It was the only time we could all do before the day really started. And I was already set. I had a shower. I was pumped up. I tend to be a morning person, so I was pumped. And when I got onto the call, people were not smiling. They would rather be sleeping and not meeting at 6 a.m. in the morning. It didn't matter how big the smile I gave was. Nobody was really returning the smiles. And I had to explain to them that this reminds me of the kitchen and the front room analogy I use in my business talks. I said to them, right now you are seeing me 6 a.m. on Thursday morning, and it seems as though this is how Uche always is. And I tend to be an optimistic person. But the day before, on Wednesday, I woke up and I just felt overwhelmed. I couldn't even have my usual quiet time, so I went on a long prayer walk to think, meditate, pray, and the like. As I was rounding up that walk about an hour, I called my friend and I said to him, I need you to just know that I'm struggling. I can't really talk right now, I have a meeting, but I just wanted to voice it out. And I said to them, that was me yesterday. This is me today, kitchen and front room. Let me give you another example. I was doing a leadership program for senior managers in a consulting firm. And the way the hierarchy works is you're a senior manager, then you get to director, then you get to partner. And the senior managers on this leadership program were saying to me, using the example of some partners, how effortless the partners would give speeches, speak to clients, and deliver presentations. And they were just like, man, I need to get there. And I smiled. As an executive coach, I can't count how many times one of my coaching sessions with an executive is running through this speech they need to make, because they need to rally the troops, inspire the organization, and galvanize people around an inspiring vision. And we do take after take. Don't use this word, use that word. A lot of preparation, kitchen. Then they go outside, deliver like, it was second nature. And the senior managers are thinking, this is how it always is. They didn't see the executive head in hand thinking, do I have to do this? If you continue to compare the kitchen of your life with the front room of somebody else's life, it's a recipe for slowing you down, putting you down, and keeping you stuck in the level that you are. So the key information here is don't compare. Going further into this concept of private struggles, I want to extend this kitchen analogy once more. And it's highlighting the fact that there's a constant parallel process. There's always going to be a kitchen and there's always going to be the front room of your life. This never, ever changes. But the way you deal with your private struggles in the kitchen determines whether or not it helps you or hinders you as you're going through life. And so let's begin to talk about how to deal with some of these private struggles and make the most of the kitchen areas of our life. So I have a question for you. What relationship do you have with your struggles? Because the relationship you have with your struggle determines whether or not it supports your life or it's bringing you down in life. And there are different types of relationships. Some people deny that they have a struggle. They try to pretend as though it isn't there. That doesn't help you. You need to face your struggles so that you can actually move past them. Some other people wait for something to change that they have no control over. I'm reminded of when I just got married, my wife and I, we had some real challenges, like most couples do. And because we had been dating for such a long time, we dated for about, I think, 8 years before we actually got married. In the first year of our marriage, our pastors always kind of laughed when we were in counseling sessions because they said, you guys are dealing with issues couples who have been married sort of 5-6 years are facing. I assume it's because you've been together for so long. Things did not begin to change until, speaking for myself, because my wife is not here to defend herself. Speaking for myself, things didn't change until I stopped waiting for my wife to change. I had to focus on what is it that I can do differently, better to move this situation forward. And then finally, some people are stuck with their private struggle because the relationship they have with it is, until this happens or this changes, I can't move on with all the other areas of my life. Your private struggle could actually be right now, you're broke. You are unemployed. You've tried your hand in business and nothing is working. People don't know. You're still showing up and doing things, right? But nobody knows that you are broke. And in your mind, you feel, if you do not get another job until you get a job, other areas of your life cannot move on. Other areas of your life cannot be a success. That doesn't help you. I'll give you an example. There's somebody I know who wants to relocate. They are currently in one country and they've made a decision that the way to move their life forward is if they are able to relocate to another country. They feel that it's going to be greener pastures, better opportunities, and life is just going to be better. And I said to them, the truth of the matter is, you could move and things could be better. We don't actually know. But the fact is, that decision doesn't rest solely on you. Assume you have all the money you need to make that relocation happen. And you go and apply for the visa. And the visa officer says a capital no. What do you do then? Is life over? So I said to him, whilst this process of you relocating is in motion, do me a favor, sit down. Think about 2 or 3 small business ideas that you can actually do, and I will give you the capital. Just get your life going. Who is to say that you don't do this business and you actually get the money you need to facilitate the visa fees and whatever other relocation costs that need to be covered are? I gave him a timeline. I gave him about 6 weeks. I saw him 2 months later, and guess what? Nothing. He hadn't changed anything. He hadn't done anything. Somebody is offering you capital, but because you focus on this, except this happens, I can't do anything else. I can't move forward. You are absolutely stuck. So the first question is, what relationship do you have with your private struggle, and how does it need to change? I'm going to leave you now with 4 questions that help you begin to use your private struggles as a stepping stone as opposed to being stuck with these struggles. I love a quote in the Bible, in the book of James chapter 1, and it says, "Consider it all joy when you face diverse temptations and trials." That is such a paradox. Consider it joy? How on earth can it be joy that I'm going through this pain? But I think it has a point, because it talks about the trying of our faith, producing perseverance and taking us to maturity. The point here is your private struggles have a purpose, and that's the first question you need to ask yourself. What is the purpose of this struggle in my life? You know, when I went broke, Here I was. I used to be an investment banker. I tried my hand out in business. And guys, I fail woefully. And being a person that loves to share their dreams and their talk and their thoughts with people, everybody knew that, quite frankly, this guy hasn't quite made it happen. At least those who were close to me. For the wider public, they were none the wiser. And so I'm broke. I don't have literally a penny to my name. I'm squatting in people's houses. I have to think twice before I get into my car because I'm trying to preserve my petrol for the most important rides I need to make. Are you getting the picture? I'm done. I'm sleeping on the floor in a friend's house. What purpose can there be in this dark time of my life? I realized that a purpose was for me my identity not to be dependent on titles and things. Up until that point, you wouldn't have to wait 1 minute talking to me and you would know I'm an investment banker, I earn a lot of money. I could even tell you how much bonus I got. Why? Because I'm trying to impress you. Seeing your eyes go up when I tell you all the things that I'm achieving, that was psychological air for me. That was how I was building my self-esteem. And when I lost everything, it was a great opportunity for me to get an identity in myself, confidence that was not dependent on things and titles. In a different episode, I will talk about, how to shift your level of self-esteem as if at the moment is currently dependent on things and titles. The next question you need to ask yourself is, what do you want? It sounds like a strange question, right? As a coach, I would speak to a leader who says, I need to move things forward. I'm stuck in this position. I need to take my leadership to the next level, one thing or the other. These are all buzzwords. These are all generic statements. When I ask, what do you want? I get a blank look many times, and they begin to think. So as far as this private struggle is concerned, what do you want? When you think, let's say you have challenges in your marriage, what do you want? Say, I want a better marriage. That means different things to different people. You say, I want to make more money. How much more? And a second question is, why do you want it? These two questions alone begin to help you look at your struggle in a different way. And let me just say something quickly that comes to mind. Oftentimes, we think a bit too much about ourselves. And so we are so concerned about what other people are thinking about us, and that is putting us under even more pressure. I want to be honest with you. People are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. People have a lot more of their own problems and challenges to think about. So don't worry about what other people are thinking. The third question, what can you do? What do you have agency over? I find a lot of people get stuck because they feel this only changes as far as this other person changes. This could be at work. I have coach leaders who say, look, the problem is once my manager stops being a micromanager and starts to empower me, I won't have this problem anymore. I won't feel inadequate or as though I can't do my job because somebody is always checking on me. Well, I get the point. We shouldn't have micromanagers. I don't like it. But the point is this. What if it never changes? And what if you can't leave that job at this point in time for the next 6 months to 12 months? What are you going to do? What do you have agency over? When you focus on what you can do and what you have agency over, you are a lot more likely to begin to move forward. And then the final question is, what next? What is the next step that you are actually going to take? So, I've given you the example of when I was broke. And I want to give you an example of my marriage. And as this podcast is starting, I'm going to be sharing various stories of myself and other people. This example, I think, is suitable to round up this episode. So, my wife and I, as I said, were kind of the friction, right? I like the way somebody put it. They said, even if you have two angels in a lift together, it doesn't matter how angelic they are, their wings are going to scratch against each other, meaning there will be some friction, right? Marriage is two imperfect people trying to merge together. And so, as we were going through counseling, and at some point it was just a case of, well, these are some ideas, and you guys can begin to work this out yourself. I stopped waiting for my wife to change, and I decided that I needed counseling, because clearly there were issues that I needed to sort out personally, so that as a husband, I was able to be the right kind of husband to my wife. I'm not saying she's perfect, and quite frankly, she never is. But the point is, I stopped waiting for her to change. My next step was counseling. So my question for you is, what is your next step? A quick recap. Your private struggles can either support you or they can bring you down. You need to have the right relationship with your private struggle. Don't deny it. Don't wait for things that you have no control over to change for your struggle to get better. And don't assume that unless this thing is sorted out, every other area of my life needs to be on pause. And then ask these questions to help you move forward. What's the purpose of this struggle? What do you want, and why do you want it? What can you do? What do you have agency over? And finally, what is your next step? I'll finish with this short prayer that I think summarizes a lot of what I've already said. And it's called the Serenity Prayer. It's a quote I love to use. And it says this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the next episode, we will be looking at progressing in spite of your struggle, part 2, blessed and burdened. If this podcast has been useful to you, please pay it forward. Subscribe to the page, like it, put a comment down, and please share it with somebody. Until next time, stay blessed.